It was the morning of April 21st, 2013. That morning, Rachel's mother, Betty Frisbee, made a phone call that would set everything in motion. She contacted the Brentwood Police Department with a simple yet chilling request. She needed officers to check on her daughter immediately. Betty explained that she hadn't been able to reach Rachel despite multiple attempts, and her concern was quickly escalating into fear. The police took her call seriously. Within minutes, patrol units were dispatched to the home of Rachel and her husband, Randy Maidens. When the officers arrived at the property, they approached the front door and knocked several times, calling out the names of both Rachel and Randy. There was no response. The silence was unnerving. Eventually, the officers made their way inside the house. With practiced care, they began a room-by-room search, calling out the homeowners' names as they moved through the spacious interior. What the officers discovered inside the home was nothing short of devastating. Dear viewers, please don't forget to like, leave a comment under the video, and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new videos. This is very important to us. Brentwood is an affluent and highly sought-after suburban enclave situated just about a 20-minute drive south of downtown Nashville, Tennessee. This picturesque town stands proudly as one of the most prosperous communities not just within the state but across the entire United States. It consistently ranks in the top 20 most affluent cities in the country, a statistic that reflects not only its wealth but also the extraordinary quality of life it offers to its residents. Home to a population of roughly 40,000 people, Brentwood is admired for its charming landscapes, tree-lined streets, and peaceful atmosphere that feels a world apart from the hustle and bustle of city life. The town is known for its tranquility and order, where families can walk their dogs along pristine sidewalks, children ride bikes through quiet neighborhoods, and neighbors greet each other with warmth and familiarity. The sense of community here is strong, and pride of ownership is evident on every street. The average household income in Brentwood is substantially higher than the national median, and it shows in nearly every aspect of life. From the beautifully maintained public parks to the state-of-the-art schools and luxury retail centers, every corner of the town speaks of comfort and privilege. Safety is another cornerstone of Brentwood's appeal. With a crime rate that is an astonishing 74% lower than the U.S. average, it's widely regarded as one of the safest places to live in America. Since its official incorporation in 1969, the town has recorded only a handful of homicides, just 8 over the course of more than 5 decades. These statistics are extraordinary by any standard and contribute to Brentwood's reputation as a sanctuary of security and stability. A portion of Brentwood lies within Williamson County, which holds the title of being the 74th wealthiest county in the United States. This adds another layer of prestige to the area and draws in individuals who prioritize not only material comfort but also long-term security and social standing. The town's upscale infrastructure includes more than 10 expansive parks, a variety of high-end restaurants, boutique shops, and access to a world-class private golf club. These features, combined with its close proximity to Nashville, a major cultural and entertainment hub, make Brentwood a prime destination for the affluent and influential. It's no surprise that a number of celebrities, successful entrepreneurs, and executives choose to make Brentwood their home. Among the list of notable residents are music icon Taylor Swift, Hollywood stars Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, musician Jack White, NHL player Mike Fisher, and country music sensation Carrie Underwood. In addition to celebrities, the area attracts top-tier professionals, CEOs, and politicians who value privacy, elegance, and convenience. In every sense of the word, Brentwood represents the ideal for those who dream of living in a place that seamlessly blends natural beauty, architectural luxury, and a close-knit sense of safety and seclusion. And yet, even in a place that seems nearly untouched by tragedy, life has a way of revealing that no community, no matter how privileged, is entirely immune to heartbreak. One of the most devastating and shocking events in Brentwood's history occurred in the spring of 2013. It shattered the illusion of invincibility that the town had built over the years. This tragic incident took place in one of the town's most elite residential enclaves, the Governor's Club. A gated community known for its exclusivity, the Governor's Club spans approximately 600 acres and is centered around a prestigious private golf course, personally designed by legendary golfer Arnold Palmer. Access to the community is strictly limited to residents and their invited guests, making it one of the most secure and private neighborhoods in the entire state. It was within this upscale setting that the home of Randy and Dr. Rachel Maiden stood, an elegant and spacious mansion measuring more than 5,000 square feet, valued at around $1 million. To outsiders, their lives appeared perfect: a beautiful home, a promising career, and a growing family. No one could have predicted that this picture of domestic bliss would soon become the backdrop of an unfolding nightmare. Dr. Rachel Maidens was more than just a successful professional. She was a woman who embodied excellence in every aspect of her life. At just 34 years old, Rachel had already established herself as one of the most respected orthodontists in the area. Her private practice, located in the bustling Maryland Farms business district of Brentwood, catered to a devoted clientele who trusted her expertise and admired her compassion. Patients and colleagues alike praised her not only for her clinical skill, but also for her warm and approachable demeanor. Rachel was also a devoted mother to her young daughter, Natalie, who had just turned 2. To her friends and those who knew her well, Rachel seemed to balance the demanding roles of mother, wife, and businesswoman with remarkable grace. She came from a background of academic excellence and personal discipline. Rachel graduated from Father Ryan Catholic High School in Nashville and later earned degrees in biology and psychology from Birmingham Southern College in Alabama. There, she was not only a top student but also a standout athlete on the college tennis team, receiving accolades for both her academic and athletic achievements. Her journey continued at the University of Florida Dental School, where she distinguished herself as a leader, serving as class president and actively participating in community outreach programs. Upon earning her Doctor of Dental Surgery degree, she further specialized in orthodontics at the Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C., one of the nation's top pediatric facilities. Rachel's list of professional accomplishments was nothing short of remarkable. She had opened her own clinic, published scholarly articles, and was a frequent speaker at dental conferences across the country. However, Rachel's bright path had also been shadowed by a painful personal tragedy during her early years of adulthood. On December 3, 2003, while Rachel was still a university student, her world was shaken by a scandal that would alter her family forever. Her father, Dr. Richard, a well-respected pharmacist in their community, was arrested by federal authorities. He faced serious allegations related to the unlawful distribution of prescription medication, specifically a controlled painkiller. In addition to the official accusations leveled against Dr. Richard Frisbee, there were further troubling allegations that added to the gravity of the situation. According to law enforcement sources at the time, Richard was suspected of engaging in the unauthorized sale of prescription medications directly from his residence. These were serious allegations, casting a long shadow over a man who had once been regarded as a respected medical professional and trusted pharmacist in his community. The situation escalated quickly, drawing media scrutiny and causing a deep rift within the family's personal and financial world. However, before the case could ever go to trial or reach any formal legal resolution, an even greater tragedy struck the Frisbee family. Just 2 days after his arrest, Richard Frisbee passed away suddenly. Officially, his cause of death was ruled to be cardiac-related, his heart having given out under the immense emotional pressure. While medical professionals listed it as a natural cause, those close to the family have often speculated that the sheer weight of public shame, combined with anxiety over looming legal consequences, may have been too much for him to bear. In a matter of hours, the family lost not only their father, but also the sense of stability and dignity they had once taken for granted. But the nightmare did not end with Richard's passing. The aftermath would continue to affect the entire Frisbee family in ways that were both financially devastating and emotionally scarring. In a sweeping move that reflected the seriousness of the charges, Nashville authorities temporarily froze the bank accounts not only of Richard, but also of his wife, son, and daughter, Rachel. All of them were drawn into a complex and prolonged legal investigation, scrutinized under the assumption that they might have had knowledge of or been inadvertently involved in Richard's alleged activities. For a family already reeling from sudden loss, The intrusion of legal authorities into their private lives only compounded their pain. The legal proceedings dragged on for several years, draining the family's emotional and financial resources. Ultimately, the investigation concluded that Rachel and her family members had no involvement in the alleged wrongdoing. Their names were cleared, and they were found innocent of any criminal conduct. Yet the financial toll had been significant. Years of frozen assets had disrupted their lives, and rebuilding from that kind of financial disruption is no easy task. Rachel's mother, Betty Frisbee, did eventually receive a financial settlement from the authorities in the amount of $155,000. An acknowledgement, perhaps, of the hardship they had endured. Still, no sum of money could erase the psychological burden or restore the years lost to anxiety and stigma. The emotional wounds ran deep, and the scars left by this episode were likely to remain for a lifetime. Rachel, however, refused to be defined by tragedy. Rather than allowing her family's misfortune to dictate the course of her future, she used it as fuel to propel herself forward. With extraordinary focus and determination, she continued her academic journey and earned her degrees with distinction. Those who knew her described her as someone with quiet strength and unwavering resilience. Perhaps buried beneath her drive for academic and professional excellence, there was a psychological mechanism at play, a need to reclaim control, to achieve independence, and to ensure that she and her future family would never again be so vulnerable. Rachel didn't just survive adversity, she transformed it into motivation. And she succeeded. Against the odds, she carved out a life that many would envy, a successful medical practice, a beautiful home, and a loving family. But tragically, that hard-won stability would be short-lived. Randolph Carey Maidens, known as Randy to friends and family, was Rachel's husband. He was born to Charles and Barbara Maidens in St. Louis, Missouri, but spent much of his formative years in the state of Georgia. There, he attended Wheeler High School in the suburban city of Marietta, where he was remembered as an intelligent student with a promising future. He later went on to graduate from the esteemed Georgia Institute of Technology, better known as Georgia Tech, a school known for producing some of the nation's top engineers, scientists, and business minds. By the time Randy and Rachel got married, he had secured a well-paying position as a sales manager at a biotechnology company headquartered in Brentwood. This firm was reportedly involved in developing advanced medical therapies with a focus on oncology research, an industry both financially lucrative and ethically high stakes. Yet, despite the appearance of professional success, rumors began to circulate in the months before the tragedy that Randy was no longer employed by the company. While the biotech firm declined to offer public comment, likely due to legal sensitivities, it was widely speculated that Randy's departure had been abrupt and possibly involuntary. The lack of official statements left the public to draw its own conclusions. During the early months of 2013, Randy's behavior reportedly began to change in noticeable and troubling ways. Friends, neighbors, and even restaurant staff started to witness behaviors that seemed out of character. One particular incident in January stands out as especially concerning. That evening, Randy entered a local restaurant visibly intoxicated. According to multiple witnesses, his appearance and demeanor alarmed both patrons and employees. He was reportedly loud and erratic, to the point where a concerned waitress called 911. She later told dispatchers that she was hesitant to serve him alcohol and equally afraid to allow him to leave in such a state. As she later recounted, when Randy stood up from his seat, several items fell from his pocket, including what appeared to be a shotgun shell and a large glass bottle. Alarmed, the waitress tried to keep Randy calm while waiting for police to arrive. To her credit, she managed to persuade him to stay on the premises. When officers did arrive and searched his vehicle, they reportedly found a shotgun inside the car. Surprisingly, no arrest was made. Instead, the officers allowed Randy to call his wife, Rachel, to pick him up and take him home. Witnesses said Randy pleaded with the restaurant staff not to contact his wife, fearing her reaction. He referred to Rachel as someone who would be upset or disappointed in him, language that suggested an ongoing strain in their relationship. That incident raised many questions, especially in retrospect. Why was a visibly intoxicated man in possession of a weapon allowed to leave the scene without consequence? Why weren't more preventive actions taken? These are the kinds of questions that would only gain weight after the events that unfolded later that year. Then came the morning of April 21st, 2013, a date that would be etched into the minds of everyone involved. Rachel's mother, Betty Frisbie, placed a call to the Brentwood Police Department. Her voice was calm but urgent. She requested that officers go to her daughter's home as soon as possible. She explained that she hadn't been able to reach Rachel and was growing increasingly worried. Given the family's history and the undercurrents of tension in recent months, Betty's concern was not without reason. According to multiple sources close to the investigation, Rachel's mother, Betty Frisbie, was growing increasingly alarmed on the morning of April 21st, 2013. She had a deep, intuitive feeling that something was terribly wrong. As a mother, she knew her daughter's routines, tone of voice, and emotional temperature. And on that day, something simply wasn't adding up. In conversations with family members afterward, it was suggested that Betty had already been concerned about Randy's emotional state in the days and weeks leading up to that fateful morning. One relative even stated that Betty had told others Randy was on the verge, though what exactly that meant remained open to interpretation. According to some unconfirmed accounts, Betty gave Randy an ultimatum over the phone. If she didn't hear from Rachel personally within the next 10 minutes, she would immediately notify law enforcement. What transpired during that phone call remains one of the more unsettling unknowns in this case. But given what happened next, it's hard not to imagine the sheer terror and heartbreak that must have flooded Betty's mind in that moment. What exactly Randy said to her is not publicly known, but it was evidently disturbing enough to compel her to follow through on her warning and contact the Brentwood Police Department. Within minutes of Betty's call, patrol officers were dispatched to the maiden's residence, located within the gated luxury community known as the Governor's Club. The scene that awaited them was eerie in its stillness. When they arrived at the sprawling mansion, officers noted that all the blinds and curtains had been tightly drawn, effectively sealing off any view of the inside. There were no visible signs of life. The officers knocked on the door multiple times, calling out for both Randy and Rachel. But the silence that greeted them was unsettling. Fortunately, they discovered that the garage door had been left slightly ajar, allowing them a lawful way to enter the home. Once inside, officers began methodically checking the rooms, calling the homeowners' names. No one answered. Officer Austin Kern made his way upstairs, where he looked down from the balcony into the two-story Great Hall. From that vantage point, he spotted something troubling, what appeared to be a shotgun lying openly on a couch, along with other objects that strongly suggested a serious incident had taken place. What they found moments later confirmed their worst fears. Rachel Maiden's was discovered on the first floor of the home, in the hallway between the living room and the foyer that led toward the master bedroom. She showed no signs of life. Out of respect for the family and due to the ongoing investigation, police have never released graphic or detailed descriptions of her condition, but it was immediately evident. Even more disturbing was the initial assessment of the crime scene. Investigators noticed a strong chemical odor throughout the home, particularly near where Rachel's body was found. The unmistakable scent of bleach hung in the air. It quickly became apparent that someone had attempted to clean parts of the scene. There was visible evidence on portions of the wall and floor, though efforts had been made to wipe them away. Some areas had been scrubbed so forcefully that discoloration remained on the wood and tile. The presence of bleach suggested a deliberate attempt to eliminate physical evidence. And while the cleaning had not been entirely effective, it indicated that whoever had committed the act had stayed behind for at least some time afterward. And yet, Randy was nowhere. Immediately, the Brentwood Police Department launched an intense manhunt. The urgency of the situation meant that local law enforcement requested assistance from additional agencies. Officers from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI, joined the effort, along with SWAT units, K-9 teams, and aerial search support. That night, the quiet and pristine streets of the Governor's Club were transformed into a coordinated search grid, illuminated by searchlights and buzzing with the sounds of helicopters overhead. For residents, the scene was surreal, like something from a television drama, except all too real. Brentwood Police Chief Jeff Hughes addressed the media that evening. In a carefully worded but pointed statement, he described Randy Maidens as unstable and potentially armed, urging the public to remain cautious. He confirmed that authorities believed Randy posed a potential danger not only to himself but to others, and that locating him was a top priority. The tension in the community was palpable. As the investigation progressed into the early hours of the next morning, new and chilling details began to emerge from inside the Maidens' home. On the kitchen table, detectives discovered a handwritten note left behind by Randy. The contents of the note were emotional and disjointed, suggesting a troubled state of mind. In it, Randy expressed what appeared to be remorse. He wrote that he loved Rachel but felt overwhelmed by recent events. He did not explicitly confess to any specific action, but he admitted that he had done something irreversible, something that compelled him to flee. The letter took on an even more troubling tone as it progressed. Randy thanked Rachel's family for the years spent together, but also used the space to express long-held resentments. He wrote about feeling humiliated and criticized in the marriage. He claimed that Rachel had often spoken to him harshly, belittled him, and that their arguments had become more intense in recent months. He described himself as emotionally exhausted and even referenced Rachel's prior relationships, stating bitterly that he hadn't become her third husband for nothing. According to Randy, the couple had argued constantly over trivial matters. What alarmed investigators even further was a portion of the note in which Randy expressed a desire to continue raising their daughter, Natalie. He mentioned hoping to co-parent with Rachel's family, a jarring and almost surreal sentiment given the gravity of what had occurred. It was clear that Randy had contemplated life beyond that day, even while apparently preparing to go on the run. And indeed, the next major discovery seemed to confirm that theory. In the trunk of Randy's vehicle, police found a duffel bag containing approximately $87,000 in cash. The money was not organized in any way. It appeared hastily gathered and shoved into the bag. An additional $9,000 was found inside the home. Investigators also noted that several personal items and clothing had been packed. It appeared that Randy had begun preparations to leave Brentwood, possibly even the country. Yet, for reasons still unknown, he never made it past the wooded area behind his home. Surveillance and cell phone records revealed that, following Rachel's death, Randy had made a call to a well-known criminal defense attorney in Nashville, David Wren, a lawyer with decades of experience in high-profile cases. The content of their conversation remains protected under attorney-client privilege, but the timing of the call speaks volumes. It suggests that Randy was seeking legal guidance before deciding what to do next. Some believe that after speaking with his lawyer, Randy considered turning himself in, while others think he panicked and ran into the nearby forest in a haze of confusion and fear. For nearly 12 hours, Randy hid in the dense wooded area near the property. A ground search had been underway since dawn, and authorities had set up a wide perimeter. Then, just before noon the next day, a figure slowly emerged from the tree line. Randy walked out with his hands raised and surrendered without resistance. Officers took him into custody without incident. The arrest marked the beginning of a long and complex legal process, and the start of a difficult chapter. While law enforcement teams continued their urgent and methodical conducted a parallel investigation throughout the upscale community itself. As more residents were interviewed and surveillance footage reviewed, new and alarming reports began to surface. Several neighbors came forward with statements indicating that their homes had been approached, possibly even tampered with, during the hours following Rachel's death and before Randy's surrender. Some residents claimed they had found signs of attempted forced entry on their garage doors and side entrances, including scratch marks near locks and partially turned doorknobs. As investigators reviewed footage from neighborhood security cameras, these suspicions were confirmed. Video evidence revealed that Randy had wandered through the gated community in the early hours of the morning, moving from house to house. The images showed him approaching various homes, at times appearing disoriented, possibly searching for a place to hide. His intentions remained unclear, but given the context and his mental state, residents were understandably shaken. For a man wanted in connection with such a serious offense to be wandering the affluent, normally serene streets of Brentwood, at a time when families were just waking up and preparing for their day, was more than unsettling. Fortunately, none of the neighbors opened their doors. Whether it was instinct, fear, or simply the early hour, everyone kept their distance. The idea of offering shelter to someone considered potentially dangerous and emotionally unstable was unthinkable. Later interviews revealed that many residents were horrified by the idea that such a harrowing situation had unfolded literally on their doorsteps. Some expressed frustration at the fact that Randy had been allowed to move freely through the area in the aftermath of the crime, especially given the level of threat he was believed to pose. "It was terrifying," one neighbor later told local media. "We moved here for peace and security. That morning felt like something out of a nightmare." Following Randy's arrest and surrender, the legal process began to unfold rapidly. Within a short time, he was officially charged with first-degree murder, a charge which, under Tennessee law, carries the possibility of capital punishment or life imprisonment without parole. Additionally, he was charged with tampering with evidence due to the alleged efforts to clean the crime scene using bleach. Initially, Randy was held in custody with bail set at $2 million, a figure that reflected both the seriousness of the charges and the perceived flight risk he posed. But his defense team, led by seasoned attorneys, quickly began pushing for a reduction in the terms of his pretrial detention. They filed motions arguing that Randy posed no ongoing threat to society and claimed that his surrender to police after 12 hours in the woods demonstrated his willingness to cooperate with the justice system. The defense argued that if Randy had truly intended to flee, he had ample opportunity to do so in the window of time following Rachel's death. They emphasized that no passports, travel documents, or transportation tickets were found in his vehicle or on his person, and that despite having access to a significant amount of cash, he had not left the immediate area. Surprisingly, the court agreed with the defense. In June 2013, the presiding judge reduced the bail amount significantly, from $2 million to $750,000. This decision sparked controversy, especially within the local community. Some residents felt that allowing Randy to walk free while awaiting trial was a risk that should not have been taken. Nonetheless, the new conditions enabled Randy to post bail and await trial outside of custody. Details of where he lived or how he spent his time during this period remain unclear, but it would not be long before he once again found himself in trouble with the law. In December 2013, while still out on bail, Randy was arrested a second time. This incident occurred in Avery Park, a suburban apartment complex located in Bellevue, another Nashville suburb. Residents of the building were startled to find a man, later identified as Randy Maidens, wandering through the complex, reportedly knocking on doors late at night. One resident later recounted that Randy had identified himself as a law enforcement officer and insisted on being let inside. The situation quickly escalated, prompting someone to call 911. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Randy in a state of heavy intoxication. He was arrested on charges of public intoxication, but once again, the legal consequences were minimal. Despite the fact that he was already out on bail for a first-degree murder charge, Randy was released the following day. This second arrest raised serious concerns, especially for prosecutor Kim Helper, who had been monitoring the case closely. This time, she moved swiftly to revoke his bail altogether, citing a clear violation of its terms and presenting a renewed case for his detention. The judge agreed, and Randy was returned to custody to await trial. But these weren't isolated events. Prior to the incident involving his wife, Randy had displayed behavior that had worried neighbors and acquaintances for months. One neighbor, Cynthia Rosenblum, recounted a particularly disturbing encounter to reporters. She and her husband had seen Randy wandering the wooded area behind their homes wearing a mask. When they confronted him, he was reportedly incoherent and seemed confused. He claimed he had gotten lost while walking his dogs. Cynthia and her husband noted that he appeared intoxicated and agitated, and although the moment passed without incident, they remained uneasy. Further investigations revealed that Randy had also been involved in a trespassing case in Florida just weeks before Rachel's death. While the case was ultimately dismissed following his arrest for murder, it raised additional questions about his mental health, behavior patterns, and potential warning signs that had gone unheeded. Unfortunately, these red flags were never enough to provoke real consequences, at least not until tragedy struck. Finally, with the trial date approaching, originally scheduled to begin on September 29, 2014, a major development occurred. Just 2 weeks before court proceedings were set to begin, Randy Maidens entered into a plea agreement with the state. As part of the deal, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, a lesser charge than the original first-degree indictment, as well as to a charge of paternal rights. In exchange, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. While second-degree murder in Tennessee carries a potential sentence of up to 60 years, the plea arrangement considerably shortened his time behind bars. What's more, the structure of Tennessee's sentencing laws allowed for the possibility of early release in cases of good behavior. This meant that despite the severity of the crime, Randy could serve considerably less than the full 25 years, particularly after factoring in time already served before sentencing. This aspect of the agreement was deeply troubling for many observers, especially those close to Rachel. For them, the plea felt like a compromise that didn't fully reflect the weight of what had been lost. According to Randy's own attorney, the plea deal was seen as a pragmatic move, a way to avoid the uncertainties of a jury trial and reduce the possibility of an even harsher sentence. Rachel's grieving relatives were clear in their position from the very beginning. They emphasized that the Williamson County District Attorney's Office had entered into a plea agreement with Randy Maidens not out of mercy, nor as an acknowledgement of the defense's arguments, but rather for the sake of protecting the one innocent person most affected by the tragedy. The family explained that they had reluctantly accepted the terms of the plea because they understood that a full criminal trial could drag on for months, possibly years, and place unimaginable emotional strain. After Betty spoke, the court granted Randy the opportunity to address the family. Not directly, but through a written statement read aloud by his defense attorney, David Rabin. The courtroom was silent as Rabin unfolded the paper and began reading. "Right now, my words must sound hollow," Randy's statement began. "In light of your tragic loss, I know there is nothing I can say to undo the pain. You are enduring the worst heartache a mother can feel, and I am the reason for it. Every morning, I wake up and wish I were trapped in a nightmare from which I could wake. But I am not. I am the author of this tragedy. You accepted me into your home, into your family, and I destroyed that trust. But I know that no apology, no amount of remorse can ever make this right.